Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. My apologies, it's been quite a little while. I've been traveling, doing summer work, other activities, job, but I've been quite busy. I go back to school in less than a week, but what a better time to make a video about the 2021 California gubernatorial recall election. This recall is happening on September 14th. Early voting starts as early as, just 10 days. So this recall is happening very, very soon. It's happening very, very fast. And in this video, I'm going to provide a little background to it, look at some polling, and then in the next video, I'm going to talk about the candidates, mainly the Republican candidates, since there's not really any major Democratic candidates, but maybe I'll throw a Democrat or independent in there. But let's get started. So, Governor Newsom in the state of California is kind of people have very varying opinions on him. I would say as a Californian, there's a decent amount of people who really, really do not like him. Probably the majority of people are kind of feel meh about him, don't really have a super strong opinion, but don't love him. And then there are people who really like Newsom. Why this recall happened? Well, let's go to the recall website itself. There's, a lot of reasons. The recall Newsom and the candidates are kind of different things. Some stuff about gun rights, illegal immigrants, high taxes. But really, this recall is about school closures. And that has been a big issue in the state of California. I, as a California public school student, I only went to school for maybe 10, 14 days all of last year. And this election is really, really about school closures. It's about a lot of things, but at the forefront of a lot of people's minds is kind of the school closures and also the French Laundry Party. If you don't know about the French Laundry Party, Governor Newsom kind of broke the COVID restrictions that his administration had set in the state. He went to a party maskless. There were a lot of, there were some other people there. And as you can see, as a reaction to the French Laundry Party, around 500,000 new signatures were submitted to the recall campaign as a reaction to the photos of Newsom coming out indoor during the height of the pandemic. He was maskless. He was at a very, very expensive restaurant, and a lot of Californians thought that was a slap in the face. Another big issue in this recall is homelessness. Homelessness is extremely high in California. As a Californian, I can say, I've seen it grow. It continues to be a really big issue, especially in cities like, San Francisco, where you have retailers pulling out because there's so much shoplifting. There's a big mental health crisis. There's a big drug problem. That's another big issue with this recall. There's also just the general tax issue. State taxes in California are quite high. I believe it's 13%, 14%, which places us, we are the second highest state tax. We have the second highest state tax in California. So obviously for people who are, support lower taxes, they would support the recall. So there's a lot of support behind the recall. And there was this deadline, and eventually the 1.6 million signatures, that's what was needed. The recall campaign was able to acquire those, and the recall was set for September 14th. If we go to the kind of stop the recall, their marketing is they're tying the California Republican Party to Trump and the insurrection. You have, QAnon, anti-vaxxers, a lot of kind of Trump iconography. And this is an effective message in California. California voted extremely for the Democrats. Newsom won with, I believe, 61% in 2018, and Biden won with 63%. which is the highest a Democrat has ever gotten in the state of California. You also see there's a lot of prominent Democratic Party officials. There's basically the entire Democratic Party. There's not like groups of the Democratic Party that support the recall. The Democratic Party in California and nationally is against the recall. They want to keep Newsom as the governor. If we go to the polling, initially, the kind of anti-recall, no on the recall was leading. But since things have tightened, you see some polls, Emerson College poll, a very reliable poll, only 2% different and 6% undecided. That's within the margin of error. A more recent poll, Survey USA, another quite reliable poll, 51-40, 9% undecided. Yes on the recall. This recall going through seems like it might not happen, but it is actually a very real reality. A big reason for that is Democrats are very worried about low turnout. As someone who currently lives in California, people are not talking about this election. There is not kind of the buzz that comes with an election right now. And that really worries Democrats because, 1.6 million people signed this recall petition. That gives Republicans essentially a 1.6 million vote lead over Democrats, and they got to find ways to make that up. And, off-year elections have low turnout, and Democrats are very, very worried that, and I've said repeatedly on this channel, I don't think elections are about turnout. In California, that's a little different. In a state like Wisconsin or Michigan, it's about flipping counties. It's about expanding your voter base. In California, it's about turnout. If Republicans and independents and, there's a lot of Democrats who support the recall campaign, if they turn out enough, they might be able to overwhelm Democratic support in cities and win this election. So with a little history with this recall, there was a recall in 2003, which elected Governor Mr. Terminator Arnold Schwarzenegger. He replaced Gray Davis, who was hit with a big scandal, I believe because of, there was like something with the power grid in the state of California, and Davis didn't win by very much anyway, so it was, they got the support and they recalled, and even, Republicans split the vote. If you add up the two Republicans, you get far more than 50%, and a strong win, and, but Arnold was elected governor, and a couple of years later, he was elected again by a pretty strong margin in the state of California. If we look at this map, we see that basically the Bay Area and some of the North Coast is blue and everything else is red. If I go to a county map of California, basically, and we see up here, recall and keep. Newsom is going to get the Bay Area counties. He might not get great turnout from them, but he is going to win them. He's also going to win a county like LA County, except he might not win it by as much as he'd like to. There might be a decent amount of pro-recall turnout. Sacramento, Sacramento's suburbs certainly can go red. And then basically the recall campaign really has to win in the rest of the state. They need insane turnout from Jefferson, the northern region of the state. They need insane turnout from the Central Valley. And the Central Valley, actually, has been flipping. If we go to the 2020 election, the Central Valley is, farmland, America's breadbasket of sorts. But more and more counties in the Central Valley have been going blue, and a lot of them are getting closer. Kern County, this is where Kevin McCarthy's seat is, only went to Trump by 10 points. Fresno County, I believe this was a flip, or Joe Biden expanded on Hillary Clinton's flip. More and more counties in the Central Valley, Inyo County, Merced, Stanislaus, San Joaquin, and even up in Jefferson, Butte County, which, it's a pretty rural area of the state, have been flipping blue. And Orange County, which used to be a quite reliable Republican area, went blue in 2016, and there were 3 seats that flipped in 2018. 2 of them did flip back, or I think 4 flipped, maybe 2 flipped back. But, Democrats did a lot better in Orange County. San Diego County flipped in 2008 from Republican to Democrat. So Bush won it twice, and then Obama won it, and it has gotten more and more Democratic. But the San Diego suburbs are quite conservative. You have 2 Republican congresspeople from that region. So San Diego is another very, very important region for this recall. I expect that Republicans will be able to carry it narrowly. I expect the same with Orange County. With San Bernardino and Riverside County, Republicans need to win those parts of the state. Same with Ventura County. They obviously need good turnout in the entire Central Valley. They need to be winning every county in the Central Valley. They will probably lose in, the Monterey area. When we get down to Santa Barbara, Democrats are probably going to win that part, maybe narrowly, and then Republicans need to win in the San Luis Obispo area. But, California needs to look quite red for the state to go for the recall. And I may not have explained the kind of recall balloting well enough. On the recall, there are 2 kind of questions. The first question is, would you like to recall Governor Gavin Newsom? And there is a yes and a no. Then there is a list of candidates. I believe there are 42 candidates, maybe more. There were some court challenges. Larry Elder recently got on the ballot. But you will say yes or no, and then you will select one of the candidates. Democrats are advising that people say, obviously, no to the recall and then skip the candidates. There'll probably be some people who will say no and then pick a candidate. There'll be people who will say yes and pick a candidate, and there might even be people who say yes and don't pick a candidate. The kind of candidate list is pointless if the yes on the recall does not get over 50%. So yes on recall must get over 50% of the vote. Then they go to the candidate list. Then whoever has the highest percentage of the vote on that list will win. I know it's kind of, odd, but if this recall actually goes through, you will likely see a Republican governor get elected with maybe 20-25% of the vote. Recent polls show that Larry Elder, who is a conservative talk show radio host, an African-American Republican, is leading. Some other polls show that it's closer. The main candidates, and I'll go through them, and there's a lot of candidates, are Larry Elder, John Cox, Kevin Faulkner, Kylie Paravath. There's a lot of candidates to go through. I'll only be going through a couple of them. Here's another recent poll. You're seeing 27, 23, 10. Those are the margins that a recall candidate would win with. It will not be under 10%. But there's a high chance, California's next governor might be elected with 19% of the vote. That is something that very well could happen coming out of this recall election. That is kind of the gist of the recall election. It's pretty complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces to this election. There's a lot of trends, a lot of themes. Democrats are really trying to tie the recall to Trump and the insurrection, while Republicans are trying to say, hey, this isn't a Trump thing. This is a we want to get rid of our governor thing. Remember your schools were closed. Remember how homelessness is rising. The high taxes, the high cost of living. Remember, California did just lose an electoral vote. We did just lose a House seat. That's because a lot of people have been moving due to the high cost of living. Personally, I, know of a fair amount of people who've moved to states like Texas or Oregon or Montana. That's affecting California as well. But this is certainly a very, very complicated recall. While I might have said in May or April that, Republicans will put up a good fight but fall short, now I think this could go either way. It's going to be extremely close, and if California does go red on September 14th, that is only a sign of bad things to come for the Biden administration, and for Democrats. If the recall goes through, I would not be surprised if Glenn Youngkin wins in Virginia. I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Ciattarelli in New Jersey keeps it closer with Phil Murphy. I still think Phil Murphy will win that governor election in New Jersey, but it might get closer than expected. And then, if Republicans are able to ride this wave of momentum into 2022, who knows what could happen. So this is really a critical election. This is going to set the tone for the next 2 years of elections. This election isn't necessarily in the national spotlight yet. It's certainly on the statewide level. This election is not being talked about. There are not people going door to door. You do not see lawn signs for this campaign. And that is extremely worrying for Democrats who really rely on high turnout in the state. So we will see how this goes. I'll probably make 1 or 2 more videos about this since I'm a Californian, and a lot of my audience lives in California. So this is a brief overview of the California recall election. And soon I will post a video about the candidates running in the candidate section of the recall. Remember, the candidate section only matters if the recall gets over 50% of the vote. All right, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.